Hi, it's Alexis Hasselberger, time management and productivity coach. So there is this category of stuff that it feels like it's just not that urgent. And so we can put it off, and then we do put it off, and then we put it off some more because nothing bad seems to have happened yet. And so we put it off some more. But this category of stuff is actually stuff we can't afford to put off, right? It's stuff where if we dealt with it now, we will be so much better off than if we kick this can down the road, right? These things are things that we think we don't have time for. We say, I'm too busy to do X. And in fact, we do not have time not to do those things. And it's important to know what those things are because these things show up all the time in our lives. So what are some of these examples? Well, I want to share with you just a few things that fall into this category, because I think once you see a few of them, you'll see that there's actually a lot of them. So one of these categories is things like dental work, right? We all know we're supposed to go to the dentist every 6 months. We're supposed to get our teeth cleaned. We're supposed to get them checked, make sure that, no cavities are growing, and, make sure we're flossing and all of that stuff. Do we put this off? I think we do. A lot of folks put off going to the dentist sometimes for years. But what happens when we do? Bad things can happen when we do, right? Maybe you don't go for your cleanings and you don't notice that you are starting to get a cavity. And so you don't do anything about it, right? You don't make extra care in that location. You don't get it filled, etc. And now you feel you have a toothache. And by the time you actually go to the dentist because it feels like there's something urgent, well, now not only do you have a cavity, you've got to do a root canal, right? So the cavity, that probably was going to cost you a couple $100. The root canal, that's going to cost you several $1,000s, right? The cavity might have taken 45 minutes in the chair. The root canal is going to take several visits, and it's going to take several hours. Right? So this is a problem made much worse by not taking time to do the routine thing, which is go to the dentist, right? Just get your cleanings, make sure that nothing's bad is going on. Now, what else falls into this kind of a category? So something else that falls into this category, I think, is sleep. We all, I think, sleep and exercise are the first things to go when we get busy, right? We think, well, you know what? We can sleep later. I know I've heard this saying and I hate it so much, but well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? No, sleep now. Sleep is incredibly important. When we don't sleep enough, this has really terrible effects on our ability to do basically everything else, right? So if we are not sleeping well, then what happens is that we are making worse decisions. We have trouble concentrating. We make more mistakes. It takes us actually longer to get the work done that we are trying to do than if we slept maybe an extra hour and came into that situation well rested. So we often think, I don't have time to sleep. I'll sleep later. And in reality, not sleeping actually just increases the amount of work and mistakes we need to fix, right? Another one, really common, getting our cancer screenings, right? So there's all sorts of different cancers that you're going to be screened for at different ages. At 40, you can get a mammogram. I think at 45, you start getting colonoscopies. None of these things are fun, right? Nobody wants to go get a mammogram and get their boobs squished in that thing. It hurts. It takes time out of the day. Nobody wants to get a colonoscopy. I mean, aside from what's actually happening during that colonoscopy, you have to drink this gross big jug of stuff beforehand, right? You have to spend a weekend on the toilet beforehand. Like, that sounds terrible, right? But what is the alternative, right? Let's say that you don't get those screenings, and let's say you did have cancer, and you got the screenings, they catch it early, great, we can actually make progress, and you live, right? What if you delay, right? What if we delay these screenings until you actually have symptoms? Now, instead of catching, a cancer at level 1, right, or stage 1, when we can do something about it, most likely, maybe we're catching it much, much later in stage 3 or stage 4, when maybe it's a lost cause, right? We are going to be going through treatment at that point, and maybe it's going to work and maybe it is not, right? I don't mean to get dire, but this stuff is dire, right? I do mean to scare you just a little bit, because this is the stuff that we don't think about. We don't think about the consequences. We think, what difference does it make if I delay this screening by 6 months or by a year? I mean, maybe a lot, right? Maybe your life. We don't know. But these things are the things that we don't have time not to do. Now, let me give you one last example that is not so life or death related, but is still a big deal, right? And I know people that this has happened to before. And this is things like renewing your passport, right? So if you renew your passport on time, it's still a pain in the ass, right? It's still, you have to, submit the forms and blah, blah, blah. It's not super fun, right? You have to get new photos, and it's a number of things you have to do, right? But what if you don't get it done on time. And now you have a vacation coming up next week internationally. You're going to need that passport. You notice that your passport has not been renewed. And now you have to go through an even longer process. So instead of maybe taking an hour out of your day to send in the renewal, now you have to go to the passport office, stand in line at 5 in the morning, hope you get a spot. Maybe you're there all day. You have to take the day off of work. Worse yet, right? What if you don't notice that your passport needs to be renewed and you show up at the airport? This has literally happened to somebody that I know. You show up at the airport, you're about to get on your flight, you have this vacation you've already paid for, you've been dreaming about it, you've been waiting for it for months and months and months. It's finally here. You show up at the airport and your passport is expired. Now what happens? You have to do that whole thing, that expedited process that I just mentioned, but you also are going to miss a few days of your vacation because you have to spend them getting your passport renewed. So all of these things fall into this category of, if you take care of it sooner rather than later, you will save yourself time in the long run. You will save yourself money in the long run. And I know it's hard because humans, we're not so great at delayed gratification. And all this stuff I'm talking about is kind of delayed gratification in a certain way, right? But it's important to remember that, right? So I always think, when I'm thinking about, oh, I'm too busy to do this, I'm too busy to do that. One, I try not to say that. I try to say, I'm not prioritizing that because that's the truth. But if I'm thinking I'm too busy for X, I want to immediately think, what are the consequences if I don't do that thing, right? Not what are the consequences for me in this moment right now, because it's probably nothing, right? But what are the consequences later? How much worse is this going to be for me later if I don't deal with it now? What other things fall into this category for you? Are there other things that you put off because they don't seem that urgent, but then you spend so much more time dealing with them later? Let us know in the comments what other categories of stuff show up like this for you. And if you like this kind of content, if you want to keep getting it, one, make sure to subscribe to this channel. But two, I am going to be opening up enrollment for my program Time Well Spent really soon. And there's a link below. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check that out and see if it's something that might be a good next step for you. Otherwise, just make sure you're subscribed so that you get this content every single week.
Hey guys, video editor here. Just like she said, make sure to subscribe because only about 20% of the people that watch our videos are actually subscribed. So it'd be a big help if you were to subscribe if you're already watching our videos.